Welcome back. As mentioned, a new idea that results in culture change is an innovation. When they reviewed cases of production and product improvement through the lens of innovation, management researchers discovered that systematic methods that they incorporated into strategy making. Barnett's innovation model of recombination has proven to be a comprehensive process to understand improvements in production processes and product features. It takes innovation out of Schumpeter's black box of intuition and formalizes a method for synthesizing relevant attributes into a new concept for a product or production process. Why is innovation so important? In a supply-saturated world, companies must innovate to avoid a death spiral of cost competition. World overcapacity for every manufactured product category creates dangerous waters for management to navigate. Of course, innovation can be limited to just provide incremental advances that differentiate a firm from its competition in a market segment. An advantage of the recombination approach is that it is a repeatable process. It is not a black box of intuition. Barnett defined the major tasks relevant to both anthropology and business for innovation. The first is boundary spanning for accumulating ideas into an inventory of topical knowledge. Then several of those ideas are recombined into an innovation. Recombination is a methodology for organizing creative innovation. This is certainly an advantage to modern business management. As a repeatable process, innovation is not dependent on the heroic actions of a uniquely gifted entrepreneur, but can become an integral part of strategy making by management. In the works of Hargadon and Kim and Mawborn, recombination was recommended as an important option for strategic thinking. The process works on inputs to create an output. A recombination can be assimilation, dissimilation, or parallels. Inputs are the old product, related concepts that have the target performance. They then go through the combination process, either assimilation, discriminatory dissimilation, or a parallel technique, and you come out with a new product that has a better performance target. Related concepts that have target performance might be sharks in sub-design or meatpacking plants in automobile manufacture. Let's review recombination with the example of Harley Davidson, which was a parallel. Since the literature today it doesn't really cover a lot about parallels. So we had Harley as a hobby was the original strategy for Harley-Davidson competing with Japanese manufacturers who had superior performance and superior quality. We add to that the idea of motorcycle gangs have camaraderie. And so in our combiner we use a parallel which replaces just the relationship and none of the object elements. So we still have our group of professionals and we still have the Harley motorcycle. We have motorcycle gangs and we have a relationship of rebel camaraderie in motorcycle gangs with the members. And so the idea Teerlink had was, let's establish Harley-Davidson as a means for rebel camaraderie with professionals. So the marketing campaign they came up with was Harley-Davidson as a bridge to rebel camaraderie. So I guess one of the big questions is, how do we get the related ideas? We've got to go further than just the recombination techniques. Innovation is more than just a technique to synthesize attributes from different objects or ideas. It also involves a search for relevant objects or ideas to synthesize together. And we'll look at a couple of such search strategies today. Krovitz and Davis define approaches to search for relevant information, and these are approaches that are drawn from organizing theory. Barnett, Groton, Hargadon, and Kim and Mawborn describe boundary-spanning search approaches in their works on innovation. So methods to guide the search for relevant new ideas or concepts is important in order to minimize the search cost, yet still find relevant associations. A search strategy is proposed here that is based on the general nature of relationships. The purpose is to narrow down the search for meaningful comparisons. In complex systems, the search space is too large to effectively manage innovation without the use of search heuristics. These are useful guidelines to narrow the search space to smaller segments with richer relevance. In this presentation, several approaches are recommended to reduce search space, including boundary spanning across related industries or time, identifying and analyzing relational assumptions, and a relational word analysis. So, searching for combination ideas, you need search strategies to find interesting new concepts to recombine with current products or production processes. Effective strategies for finding new meanings reduce search costs. And so you have your old product, then you're going to go through some analysis that you can use for searching for new approaches or new concepts related to that old product. And then you're going to come out with some correlate attributes that you want to investigate further. And as I mentioned, we're going to go over three major ones today: the relational algorithm, reversal of relational assumptions, and boundary spanning. Relational word analysis is an analytical algorithm to find which of the 42 relational words is relevant for different concepts. A guy named Ogden in the 1930s developed a book called Basic English, and in it he said that you could actually learn to converse in English fluently if you understood 800 words. And 42 of those 800 words were relationship words or relational words. So those 42 words cover every type of relationship you would want to talk about or converse in English. And so Krovitz did more study on this, and we'll investigate this concept here. Krovitz views innovation as a recombination, just as the others, and he suggested using Ogden's 42 relational words as a means for looking at relationships between objects to search for a new one. So the different 42 words, as you can see here on the slide, define different relationships. Where did something come from? Did something come after? Did something come before? Is it the opposite of something? Is it over something? Is it under something? Where does it happen in relation to when? Is it a while relationship between the two objects? Something happens while something else happens. So there's these 42 relational words. So if we consider Harley-Davidson using the from relational word, it leads to the question, where did Harley come from? And the Harley-Davidson that we thought about in the 80s was the Harley-Davidson from motorcycle gangs. No one really thought of Harley-Davidson as from hobbyists. And then we want to look at what are some of the salient aspects then of motorcycle gangs. Well, they're rebels with camaraderie, and so that was a potential new relationship or concept for Harley, was rebel camaraderie with other groups. So in more general terms, if you consider object A and object B, relational word analysis would join the two objects in a sentence using each of the relational words. The observer would decide if they make sense or not. For example, the following would occur for the first 5 relational words, which are in the first column of this chart on the slide 23. Object A about object B, object A across object B, object A after object B, object A against object B, and object A among object B. So much of the information from a set of questions will already be known and factored into the strategy. And what we're really looking for is something that is not expected. Something that is expected is not something new. So if you find something you expect to find, that's not something new, and it's really not going to be worth pursuing. Shannon notes that new information is usually a surprise. So when you go through this word analysis, you're looking for something that's kind of a surprise. And you keep following it through the concepts. It does not fit into our existing models or understandings about an environment, and so it should raise some doubt about our current thinking, such as an equivocal clue about something that's not already factored into an existing strategy. So for Harley-Davidson, the expectation is we would find, based on their advertising campaign for 20 years from the 1960s when the Japanese bikes hit and they began their hobby marketing campaign, that it would be embedded that that's what people thought of when they thought of Harley-Davidson was a hobby, a bike. That was not the case. People still associated Harley-Davidsons with motorcycle gangs. And motorcycle gangs, not surprisingly, were rebels with camaraderie. But what was something new was that professionals actually identified with those rebels who had camaraderie. White notes that equivocal information drives organizational change. That's something new, something unexpected. New information is discovered that was not known or not well understood, and a change must be made in response to this circumstance. For example, Harley pursued a market for motorcycles, but no longer understood how to reach the target market of professionals. An interesting equivocal clue was that Harleys had come from motorcycle gangs, not hobbyists. This was a clear contraindication of their strategy. Most people thought Tearlink was going to destroy Harley by abandoning the hobby appeal of Harley-Davidson motorcycles. But Tearlink found evidence that professionals were more interested in rebel camaraderie than a hobby. And this was a growing trend in the target market. An equivocal clue causes the observing organization to act. An enactment occurs. This enactment results in the identification of options. A resourceful organization may select a different or a new approach. Harley tried the new approach based on the strategy of its new president, Tearlink. If the answers to relational word questions contain unequivocal clues, then there is a chance for a reversal of fortune. The concept that presents the equivocal clue, the information that does not quite fit, should be examined by recombination with the old meaning of the product, process, or meaning of the product. It's the information that does not quite fit that is important. It should not be ignored, but considered the most important information you have. Another useful approach to analyzing relationships for new and interesting ideas is from a guy named Davis, and he identifies 12 types of assumptions found in relationships and examines the possibility that the converse of an assumption is true. The 12 types of assumptions are shown in this slide, and you can see the first is if it's functional. So if an entity is assumed to be ineffective at some activity, look for the possibility that it is instead functional. Generalization is another one of the assumptions you make in defining a relationship. So if the assumption is the relationship applies generally, look for the possibility that it instead is a specific relationship between two specific entities. And obviously the converse for these concepts is true as well. In other words, if it's assumed to be specific, look for the possibility that it's general. If the assumption is the relationship is unstructured, which is organization, then look for the possibility that it's structured. And likewise with causation, opposition, covariance, curvilinear, which is also known as the fallacy of linear expectations, that events will always go as the way they always have. And so instead you might look for threshold or tipping point possibilities, coexistence, correlation, composition, and so on. So the reversal of assumption search strategy starts with identifying which of the 12 assumptions about the relationships between entities are relevant. As an example of applying this approach, consider the functional assumption. The assumption would be one of two possibilities, that the object is effective at the relationship or that it is ineffective. For example, automobiles were considered ineffective at safety in the 1960s and 70s. Volvo challenged this assumption and built a brand meaning around a safe automobile. Volvo created the new market of safe automobiles. It did not change the product. The assertion was that Volvo was already safe. But of course, function is only one of the 12 possible relationships to be searched out. So we've considered Harley-Davidson in some detail. Let's consider another example. Volvo is one. In the 1950s, Volvo established its successful brand image as a durable and dependable automobile. Its marketing employed ideas such as Volvos last an average of 12 years in Sweden, where most roads are unpaved. The 1980s proved to be a pivotal decade in the automobile industry, and powerful trends became evident during that time period. And these motivated Volvo to change its brand image. Japanese automobile manufacturers had a devastating impact on car markets from the mid-1970s through the mid-1980s. This impact resulted in German auto sales declining 30% between 1970 and 1980. In 1980, Japan became the leading automobile manufacturer in the world, the result of the fuel efficiency and dependability provided by its marquee brands. 1980 was also the year that Chrysler was saved from bankruptcy by a bailout from the U.S. government. Ford's losses in 1980 surpassed $1 billion. In 1981, the United States negotiated a voluntary restraint agreement with Japan that limited imported automobiles to 1.68 million units. A collateral effect of this agreement was a move by Japanese car makers from the economy class to the more profitable market niches. This had an impact on Volvo sales. Volvo car unit sales began a steep decline in the mid-1980s. Sales dropped over 26% during the period 1986 and 1990. Another powerful trend confronting Volvo management in the 80s was a shift in who made purchase decisions in American families. In the 1960s, less than a quarter of major purchase decisions were made by women. By the late 1980s, more than half were made by women. And women made purchase decisions using different criteria than men. For automobiles, women were interested in safety more than performance. In 1989, Volvo created the lucrative niche of safety in the automobile industry. The brand image of Volvo was changed to mean safety. Even today, the Volvo brand is still associated with safety. The marketing campaign to change the brand image won a Clio Award for the best classic advertising in 1989. And owning this powerful brand enabled Volvo not only to stop its sales decline, but also to start growing sales. Sales of Volvo in the U.S. increased over 31% from the period of 1992 to 1995 after the safety campaign was begun. So Volvo created a new American market, that is safe automobiles. And this was a long-lived association because Volvos are still considered a safe automobile. And remember, in the 1960s and 70s, automobiles in general were considered dysfunctional at safety. Volvo changed this assumption, and it built a product meaning around a safe automobile. Volvo created the new market of safe automobiles. The third strategy is boundary spanning, and it's recommended by Barnett, Kimmen-Mauborn, and Groton. Crossing various boundaries in the search for related concepts or correlates to add to a product meaning is boundary spanning. So you would study alternative products or services. You could also study complementary products. You study your value chain, what feeds into your organization, and how your output fits into other organizations' value chains. Study trends and history related to the product and industry. And these are all techniques of boundary spanning. So here's what we have so far is we've got a search for new information. We begin with our old product. We conduct a relational word analysis where we look at where the product came from, what the product's about, when did the product start making changes, what are the trends, the other relational words that might give us some clue about some new information that we haven't factored into our product design or our strategy for using the product, or the strategy for making the product. We can also use Davis's reversal of relational assumptions. What are the assumptions about how this product operates in its environment? Is it considered functional? Is it considered a general class, or is it considered just a specific instance? Is it considered curvilinear? Things will go on as they always have with this product in the environment, or are we reaching a threshold or tipping point that we have to take into consideration? All the other 12 relational assumptions that you might want to make on a product, that also can go in there. And you start looking for things that might be different. The assumption that automobiles were dysfunctional at safety. Well, that was worth challenging by Volvo. They challenged it, and they came up with a new product concept, and that product concept proved successful in its environment. So you can also do boundary spanning, where you look at your value chain that feeds into your organization, all the various vendors who give you inputs, how that might relate to what you're doing, how your output fits into other organizations' value chains, what alternative products might be like, and how their performance features might enhance your product. So we can use those techniques to come up with a set of correlate attributes. So then we take these correlate attributes that we find, and especially the ones that are unexpected, and we start running them through our recombination approach. We can use assimilation, where we say we take some of the ideas and we start recombining them by switching both elements and relationships. For example, sharks in submarine design. Okay, sharks are related. They're underwater just like submarines are underwater, but they have a different shape than submarines. And so what if we used a shark shape in a submarine? Discriminatory dissimilation. Okay, we've got all these organizations that are using a computer center. That seems to be inefficient. How can we recombine those into a service? Well, we've got virtual technology from EMC and Microsoft and other vendors where we can provide virtual images, virtual servers, and manage them en masse. So combine those two ideas and come up with the service offering of cloud technology for organizations, or a parallel technique. But you use one of those techniques to combine the old product ideas and the correlate attributes into a new product that potentially has better performance in the environment than your old product. And just let's review an example of Volvo to illustrate this. An effective information search strategy is boundary spanning. In the case of Volvo, spanning across the boundary of time. In other words, search for trends that would have yielded significant information for strategy making. Two major trends were occurring in the 1980s, the rise of the Japanese automobile makers and the rise of women as decision makers for major purchases such as automobiles. There were also some major equivoques from the relational word exercise that Volvo would have shown a potential new market. What benefits does the customer need is one of the relational questions we might ask. and women, as a majority of car buyers, would have replied safety. So that's a powerful equivocal clue about a new performance specification for the product that might help it perform better in the environment. And then another fruitful strategy for searching out information is Davis's reversal of relational assumptions. Examining the functional assumptions in the automobile industry would have yielded important information that automobiles were considered unsafe. At the same time, we had knowledge from what women were interested in, and that, of course, was a powerful trend in the market. They were interested in safety. So challenging this assumption could present Volvo with a product that would really outperform its competition in the environment. And so it did so, and it came up with the safe automobile market niche. And that was something that was wholly unexpected. The recombination of information gathered was a simple assimilation in the case of Volvo. It went from Volvo is dependable, which was becoming a tenuous performance characteristic given that the Japanese automobiles were more dependable. Another correlate was women want safety, so the switch was Volvo is a safe automobile. So you changed the concept. Volvo reoriented itself to providing safe automobiles, and it established a very powerful market niche, and it dominated that market niche, and to some extent still does 30 years later. Strategy making for innovation should not really be number crunching. Rather than getting lost in the details of numbers, it should be big picture planning. And in addition, good data is usually not available for yet unanalyzed areas of operation. So an obsession with numbers orients strategic planners to hotly contested environments that have data to support quantitative analysis. When Japan began its investigation of the U.S. market and started with motorcycles and then later expanded into electronics and automobiles, they did not use any quantitative analysis at all. They had expert managers come to the United States and examine what was going on, analyze what was going on with the introduction of each one of these major lines. And so it was the qualitative assessment of the environment that was more important to the Japanese strategic strategy makers than a bunch of number crunching. And they proved to be extremely successful at that approach. So an alternative to number crunching is a set of qualitative criteria that is used to evaluate an opportunity. Potential opportunities from the recombination processes are a set of qualitative questions. And the purpose for adding evaluation to the innovation model is to assess the viability of any proposed change. The evaluation consists of several questions. Is it a new environment? Has the environment changed that your product or process is operating in? Is there a desire for change by the current stakeholders? Is there a dissatisfaction or a concern that needs to be reduced? Is there an advantage to the change? Is there infrastructure that supports the opportunity you see? Will the environment support the price or cost of the particular innovation? Does the opportunity have adequate quality? Will the innovation be able to produce quality so that it can perform reliably in its environment? And does the market or environment have adequate size to generate expected results? Okay, not all innovations have positive outcomes. Heinz extended its vinegar product line by adding a cleaning product. So it basically took the idea of cleaning products and vinegar, its product line, and did a recombination, came up with the idea people will like a vinegar cleaning product. But if we start evaluating what was going on, cleaning products were a hotly contested market that was very crowded. It was not a new environment. It was not a new market. There was no general dissatisfaction with cleaning products. There was an advantage in using natural ingredients, so that was something in the favor of Heinz. There was infrastructure to support this opportunity. Heinz had a lot of distribution networks with major wholesalers and retailers. The price and quality was comparable to other cleaning products, but even though there was an advantage in using natural ingredients, at the time the potential market seemed very small. So when they introduced it, that niche did not grow. It had a small niche, and you know, people who were in that niche bought the product, but it did not grow. It did not give Heinz the results that it expected, and so the product was withdrawn. So here we have the complete model for recombination. We start with the old product. We do information search through a variety of search strategies to reduce the size of our search space, because it's going to be a complex search space and very large. So we help organize our information search using the Ogden-Krovitz relational algorithm, the Davis reversal of relational assumptions approach, or boundary spanning. From that, we get a series of correlate attributes. We then look at combining or recombining our product, the old product, with the correlate attributes. And we can recombine them with a simulation technique, a dissimulation technique, or parallel technique, as we've discussed in the lecture. And we come up with a candidate new product that has the performance characteristics from the correlate attributes that we want in our old product but was lacking. So then we take our candidate new product, we run it through a viability test, and if it seems to meet the criteria there, then we go ahead and roll out production. Brooks and Weick, Brooks in 1986 and Weick in 1993, both consider requisite variety to be an effective method for anticipating surprise and for making the organization resilient to its effects. Ashby defines the law of requisite variety, which states that the variety in a system must be at least as great as the environmental variety that is attempting to influence. And an important governing principle for selecting team members in virtual teams is the law of requisite variety. The law states that the variety of knowledge in an organization must be at least as great as the environmental variety it is attempting to influence. And Ashby gives an example in photography. A photographer has 5 subjects, each at a different distance from the camera. The photographer's camera must have 5 distinct settings to capture all subjects with a uniform density and clarity. If the camera has fewer than 5 settings, it lacks requisite variety and will not register with sufficient detail to depict all scenes with accuracy. So we have to choose our team so that it has knowledge from the variety of necessary domains to analyze its current situation and accomplish its assigned mission. And it's going to be essential for the team to do innovation as well. They have to have a requisite variety to understand what's going on in its environment, in its product, search for related correlate products, and recombine them meaningfully into a product with better performance statistics in critical areas. Multiple perspectives minimize the chance of surprise. However, this introduces the need to identify and manage individuals with the needed perspective. Such individuals are located across the organization, and the manager must span boundaries to get the needed expertise. Brooke calls groups with requisite varieties response pools. White suggests that leveraging the necessary knowledge to successfully influence the environment can be done with a group having common experience. The advantage for a group is that it may have a variety of viewpoints to understand the issue more completely. However, there may be also losses from imperfect communication. For requisite variety, knowledge access and utilization are both relevant. Distributed knowledge must be identified, retrieved, and exploited in order to ignite creative forces in the team and direct them to accomplish the mission. Information and collaboration technology affects this identification, retrieval, and exploitation of knowledge. An organization will not realize its innovation potential without effective collaboration technology to support virtual team interaction. And of course, we spent several lectures on the communication and technology principles for improving collaboration on global virtual teams. And in addition, we spent several lectures on technology tools we can use. And likewise, we also reviewed team building. It will be interesting at the close of this lecture to see how the needs of the knowledge economy are also influencing interior design. In addition to virtual teams, organizations are also redesigning their co-located workspace to support the new knowledge economy drivers, especially innovation through collaboration. There's beginning to form up in organizational interior design co-working hubs. And the heart of an organization is its ability to innovate. And the ability to innovate depends on greater collaboration, which is supported with intuitive rather than sophisticated collaboration tools. A new organization design is rapidly sweeping the work world. It's virtual co-working hubs that support this greater collaboration and therefore greater resulting innovation. And these are really an application of urban hubs. Often virtual initiatives have suffered setbacks because of a perverse fixation on the most sophisticated technologies. The pathway to greater innovation is instead through the use of intuitive technology. Technology is intuitive when someone without training can use it nearly as well as someone with extensive training. Urban hubs are community-based. They're collaborative workspaces that workers use because of their convenience in lieu of commuting to work. Urban hubs are frequented by talented and creative people who often work as external consultants to organizations. And some examples of these are Citizen Space in San Francisco, in San Jose and Las Vegas, Somerset House in London, and the Hub in Amsterdam. And cities across the world offer these collaborative workspaces with current tool sets. The cost of information sharing and collaboration technologies is continually declining, and these technologies are becoming ubiquitous with offerings by cloud vendors such as Amazon Web Services. Virtual servers on these clouds can be incorporated into an organization's internal networks. The concept of open space and a casual design for a workspace is being applied by corporations as well as by urban centers. And they're replacing the cubicle farms that are in common use today. These workspaces reflect a sharp contrast between the old and new work models. The new model is founded on the virtual collaborative work rules we have previously discussed. Such virtual hubs must have the right culture, the right talent, and apply the right virtual leadership principles. In leading organizations, adaptable community workspaces are replacing offices and cubicle farms. Guiding principles in leadership have progressed to reflect this new knowledge-based economy, with organizations serving as distributed knowledge systems. Likewise, communication principles have developed to deal with the issues created by space and time differences, as well as cultural understandings. Technology has developed to support information sharing and collaboration in global virtual teams. Now, co-working hubs are reorganizing workspace. These co-working hubs are the culmination of change that started with Hayek's observation that relevant problem-related knowledge is distributed. Organizations recognize the need for improved information sharing and collaboration to tap into and leverage that distributed knowledge. All of this goes to support the driving need to leverage all relevant knowledge so you can innovate.